Hi there, and welcome to the Plugged In Show. Ash Wednesday is in our rearview mirror now, and Christians around the world are observing Lent. And if you've been reading or listening to Plugged In lately, you might have noticed that we are asking you to give up a little something. We've been asking you to set aside your screens beginning tomorrow, March 7th. Now, we're not asking you to cut out screens entirely. You've still got work. You've still got school. We're not going to make you do all 40 days of Lent unless you want to. I think that would just be too much. But a week is all that we're asking. Even so, that's no easy task. So we've got some tips and tools for you that just might make it easier to break from Insta, TikTok, and Minecraft. One of our suggestions, read a book. A good book. Is Wicked, the book that the musical Wicked was based on, a good book? Bob Hoose is here, and he will tell us all about it. It may be one that you might want to pass by. It should be a fun pair of conversations, and who will be part of that conversation? Adam Holtz, Brad Eckelberry, and of course, Mr. Hoose. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. All right.
Howdy doody.
Howdy doody.
And now with this blast from the past, Bob.
Okay, so now actually, since we're speaking of blasts from the past, let us cast our mind forward to a time when the apocalypse has struck, zombies are pouring into the cities, or for some reason the power grid is down. Electricity is nowhere to be found. How are you going to spend the rest of your days without a screen to keep you company?
It's a good question. I'd like to think if I could, I'd like to think that if I could get past said zombies that you mentioned
Zombies.
and get my hands on like a manual typewriter.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe do a little bit of writing that way. That'd be fun to do.
It
Love
would
to
be
write.
fun.
A lot of time without screens to write.
Of course, nobody will ever read it.
Well,
but, hey,
you don't know what the zombie market is going to look like. I mean,
that's right. That's right.
or maybe join like a rec softball league again, depending on how bad the zombie infestation is.
You might be the best player on that team, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, it brings a whole new meaning to the phrase legging out the bases.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Mr. Hoose?
Okay, mine's simple. You mentioned books. That's probably what I would do. I'd go for long walks and find a solitary hillside with a light wind blowing, birds tweeting in the trees. I'd find a nice, comfortable spot, zombie-free, and read a book.
That sounds nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
That really does.
Just don't end up like that guy from the Twilight Zone. Talk about blast from the
Oh,
past.
yeah. He's the guy who all he wanted to do was read,
Yeah.
and then he smashed his glasses and he couldn't read.
The world
Oh, I
is destroyed.
remember
He couldn't
seeing
read.
that.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that would be a bummer. That would be a bummer. Adam, what about you?
I'm probably going to be about 50 feet behind Hoose.
Just reading.
Walking silently and
50
praying.
feet behind because if the zombies do show up, they'd get me first.
Right. Right. They, Bob's your guy. I'm going to go this way.
You don't have to outrun the zombies. You just have to outrun your friend.
I think adding zombies to the equation really changed the tenor of the responses you might have gotten. Maybe
You might just be way too busy as it is. Fighting zombies, all that kind of stuff. You might not have a lot of free time.
It's possible, and maybe just walk down to the ocean and surf. And hope
Surf.
the
That's
sharks
right.
don't get
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He's got
you can surf.
oceanfront.
Have you
Yeah.
ever actually surfed, Adam?
No, not yet. But Annabeth and I, my middle daughter and I are, we're thinking about it.
Are you really?
Nice.
Wow.
But it's cold here, so you got to wear a wetsuit.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I've always wanted to learn to surf, which might surprise you.
That actually really does surprise me. I want pictures. If that happens, I definitely want pictures.
Fair enough. If I ever actually stand up on a surfboard,
Well-
you'll be the first to get a text from me.
You can body surf too, and you won't even need a board. Yeah, I had a friend who was chosen for a role in a movie because he said he could body surf, which he couldn't do. So it was a difficult role, but hey.
And
Learn on the
zombies
job.
body surf too, but it's a different kind of body
It's a
surfing.
different type of body surfing. That is
Wow.
for sure. Yeah.
Now back to you, Paul.
No, you know what I've always wanted to do? Skydive. I've always wanted to skydive.
Okay.
That is something I
But
can't do.
if there's no screens, you're probably not going to be up in a plane.
No. I think that being up in a plane during a zombie apocalypse would not be a great idea. But I was kind of thinking, it would be when I was writing this question, like if you had written this question, Adam, and I was answering it, I would have said I would have still had screens because I would be able to drive until the gas ran out and recharge the
Right.
phone, and then I could watch, reruns of Lost anytime I wanted to. But
Right.
since I'm going to take my own questions seriously, I think I would be doing
It
a lot
feels
of reading.
like that felt a little bit passive aggressive.
Well, I was kind of thinking it would be nice to still watch some stuff, right? If you're going to have all this time, when you're not running away from zombies, you got to do something.
But that's the great thing about books.
Well, that's true.
And
You can still watch it, but it's in your brain, in your
Well,
mind.
and they make
Oh,
good
snap.
weapons. If a zombie comes too
That's
close,
true.
pop, 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 pop.
Depending on the size of the
You're
book,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Does your book have a machine gun in it? I'm super confused.
you would hit the zombies on the head. That is what you
Yeah.
would do.
Well, you'd have Les Mis, so that's a
I-
big enough object.
Yeah, there you go.
True.
So
you
I-
could kill a zombie with Les Mis.
Yeah, that is true. So I might be doing some Legos. I think there would be a lot of Legos around. Build like the
And
greatest.
if the
Lego
zombies
thing ever.
were stepping on the Legos, you might just get away from them.
And maybe garden. I think gardening would be fun.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, probably a necessity at that point.
Yeah,
too.
that'd be
Yeah.
fun for probably 5 or 6 minutes, and and then you'd go on and read a book.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well,
Wow.
barring zombies, screens are not going away anytime soon. They are a part of our lives, and they can be, dare I say, a good part of our lives. We've talked a lot about how screens can bring people together, but they can get out of hand. And that's one of the reasons we chose Lent as a good time to do this screen fast, because a big part of Lent is about remembering who we should be focusing our attention on, and that, of course, is God. Adam, I know you've done a lot of spiritual thinking. I know that you probably
He thinks
have.
you give me too much credit.
So can you tell us a little bit about what the purpose of Lent really is? Because I do think that there are some misconceptions about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, Lent is really rooted in the Catholic tradition, and it's an idea that as Jesus is preparing to go to the cross, that we are spiritually preparing to receive that remembrance of what he did on our behalf in a sober kind of way, right? And I don't mean sober as in not drunk, but just
Yeah.
that sense of seriousness. And so Lent is part of the Christian calendar as a time where we maybe we don't indulge as much. Mardi Gras is French for Fat Tuesday, and this is the day you go out and stuff your face before Ash Wednesday and begin your Lenten fasting. And different people throughout history have fasted in different ways. I mean, I think specifically Lent was a time of physical fasting, but I think because we live in an age of consumption of every kind, it is an opportunity for us to think about what are my habits that maybe are competing with my attention
Right.
for God, and what would it look like for me to voluntarily step away from those so that I might have a greater receptivity to what the Holy Spirit's doing in my life. And I think that's really the spirit of Lent, without getting too stuck in
Yeah.
legalistically fasting from anything.
Yeah, and it really is a part of a rich, centuries-old tradition within Christianity. I don't think that probably those of us from an evangelical tradition are probably quite as prone to paying as much attention to Lent, but it really is sort of a Christian discipline, right? And
Yeah, I think so.
and it's meant not to, I think a lot of people say, oh, Lent, what a great time to lose some weight. Or what a great time, but it really is designed to eliminate some of the distractions that we have, right? And
Yeah.
and to set aside certain things that might be standing in the way of our relationship with God.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, it's just so easy to become distracted.
Right.
Right? Without intentionality, to become distracted from who God is and what he wants us to do, right? Even just the day-to-day cares of life make it easy to kind of lose that focus. So when we add on screens to it as well, where, okay, I'm going home now, I just need to veg out. I just need to watch a show before bed so I can settle down and then sleep. And then, so if that becomes the routine, then God is kind of the thing that becomes forced out of the
Right.
margins there, I feel like.
And when you turn to a screen fast, in my mind, it's going to show us, one, if we put the phone down and we say purposely, I'm not going to touch this, I'm going to leave it to the side, or any screen, it's going to show us, one, how much time that screen takes,
Right.
and how much it dominates our lives, and how much of a godlike force it becomes in our lives. It's a substitute, and we don't realize it. I think we've gotten to the point where, young or old, we use these things as crutches so much that we don't realize how much time we invest.
I think that's absolutely true.
Well, and I think thinking about it from a spiritual perspective, God has made us to be filled by our relationship and our experience with him. We are created to experience fulfillment. And I think two passages come to mind. One is Psalm 16:11. You have made known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence and eternal pleasures at your right hand. And I like that idea that God has promised through David that he will fill us. And then the other one is John 10:10. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you might have life and have it to the full. And that's, Jesus said that. And again, that idea of fullness, that our screen habits and interactions are an appetite, in the same way that we have an appetite to spend money or an appetite to eat things. It's an attempt to fill ourselves with something that feels meaningful. And if you have ever dieted or budgeted because you've realized your habits in those areas are not healthy, it's hard, but eventually you begin to see fruitful progress and you realize, oh man, it's really good. The outcome here is so healthy, and we're being filled in the right way. And so I think it really is not just, screens are bad, I think even when we talk about distraction, we maybe minimize the conversation. We're attempting to be filled, and God wants us to experience the real thing, not a digital substitute.
I love that thought. And that's kind of one of the impetuses behind, kind of how we envision this screen fast. It's not, Lent is a time where we think that we give up something. And that is true. When we're asking people to set aside their screens, there's no doubt that they're giving up something. But it's not about emptying yourself. It's about filling yourself with something better, something purer. And I think that the idea that I'd like to lean into as we do this screen fast is sort of that sense of filling yourself, rekindling some relationships that you've had with your friends and family, diving into a good book, being able to write on a manual typewriter, who knows? I think that those elements that we lose sight of because the screens are such a huge part of our life, finding those elements that can fill us, that's really important, right?
Yeah, what you say, it reminds me of something my wife likes to say in terms of like fasting. Okay, you're fasting on something here. What are you feasting on over here? Like juxtaposing those things.
Yeah.
What am I fasting from over here? What are the things of God that I'm feasting on?
Yeah.
Right? How am I taking that in to get to your point, Adam, the filling that God wants to fill us with?
And even outside the spiritual realm, I mean, the fact is there have been a number of studies, especially when phones became a big thing for teens. There were a number of early studies that said, okay, well, if they're obsessed with the phones, what happens to the teens when they put the phones down?
Right.
And the studies concluded that in many, many cases, they walked away from it not only realizing, wow, this thing really did dominate my life,
Yeah.
but two, that they were happier after a stretch of time when they weren't using it.
Yeah.
Because of all the things we're talking about,
Yeah.
where they can invest in people around them, in things that they find interesting, other than flipping, continually scrolling through a screen.
Well, and I think too, we often talk about content at Plugged In, right? And maybe even having a sense of righteous indignation at some of the things that we feel. And I don't want to, sound like I'm going all puritanical, but I wonder.
That's what
I
we
wonder
think
if
of you. We think of you as a
I know.
Puritan.
You think of me as puritanical,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I got the hat. See, now I've distracted myself.
Sorry.
I wonder if we need a sense of righteous indignation about how habitually we have been sort of invited or trained to yield vast sections of our lives, right? There are multiple studies that show that teens and tweens and adults too, many of us on average, maybe not you personally, but most people are spending 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day on screens. And even as I've talked with my teens about this, instead of, we've got to shut this off, it's, wow, what else could we be investing that time in that would have a meaningful return on the investment? Because as much as I love to watch a corgi video now and then on Instagram, I never get done watching an hour's worth of corgi videos and think, that was a really
time well
kingdom-focused use
spent.
of an hour, right? And I'm joking a little bit, but I'm not, right? Because I think especially when it comes to short form video, so often it's like a bowl of M&Ms, right? You don't eat just one.
Yeah.
You just keep eating them until they're gone, and then you feel slightly sick, like Mom said you would. And what do you have to show for it? And that's sort of the nature of the medium. Is it prompts us to keep taking bites, but it doesn't fill us up in a meaningful way.
It's fascinating when I think about even my own screen habits. We talk about this stuff all the time here. And yet, when I think about the amount of time, it's part of my job to be on screens a lot, right? I'm writing there, I'm watching stuff there, all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
But when I wake up in the morning, I check the news. I play a little Pokemon Go at them. We do all these things. I get home and kind of like what you were saying, Brett, where it becomes sort of this sense of, oh man, I need some downtime. And how do you spend that downtime? It's not reading a book. It's not talking with your spouse necessarily. We sink into our screens.
Yeah.
And it really does become this time-sapping element in our lives that's kind of dangerous.
And even if this screen fast just helps us mentally understand that and to reassign maybe just a small portion of the time we would normally spend on screens to something more beneficial, that's a real plus.
Yeah.
And yeah, you touched on this, Paul, at the beginning when you were saying, hey, we're not asking people to do this for the full 40 days of Lent.
Right. If you want to, that's great.
Right. But what we landed on was a week because we felt like that was enough time that families that take part in this could see a benefit. Right. Coming out of it.
A day isn't going to be long enough. You're going to feel the pain with a day.
Right.
A week, by the time that week is over, I'd hope that you'd be able to sort of experience, some of that filledness that we would love for us all to experience, tighter relationships with your family, tighter relationships with your friends, tighter relationships with God, most importantly, right?
Learning how to read a map.
Well, let's not
What's
get
a
carried
map?
away. Come
Let's
on.
not be crazy.
So, and let me just outline, we're not talking, again, we're not saying that you need to quit your job. Say, you know what, I'm taking this week off and I'm not looking at work emails, or not going to school because so much of my stuff is on screens. We're not asking you to do that.
Of course, we had Plugged In wanted to do that. We said, sure, we'll close the screens. And you said, no.
We have movies to review. but I do think that so
Hypocrite.
because screens are such a part of our lives, right? It can be hard for us to escape them completely. Now, if you find a way to do that, more power to you. But what we're really asking is
Zombie apocalypse.
Zombie apocalypse. What we're asking is for people to just step away from the social media. You know, look at your screen time and really figure out, what do I need to do and what do I want to do? And the stuff that you can set aside, set it aside and dive into some real world activities that you might have always wanted to do but never had the chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Surfing.
There you go, surfing. Unplug from your phone and screens, reconnect with God, your family, your friends.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Take advantage of that time.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we're going to do with this Screen Fast is we are not going to leave you sort of high and dry to do this grand adventure on your own. Obviously, the Screen Fast is right around the corner, but I think you can still sign up over. Where can they sign up, Brett?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'd encourage everyone to sign up at pluggedin.com/screen-fast-2025, right? That's where you can sign up. Please sign up.
We kept it short.
We kept it short, sweet, just a few dashes, that's all. But it's completely free, right? Once you sign up, you'll have access to all sorts of special resources that the team has put together to help you and your family connect during the time. You know, we're big believers in, we're not just asking you to give up the time and then stare at the wall and watch paint dry instead of looking at a screen, right? We want to give you or help give you ideas. You might already have some great ideas, but if you don't, we want to help give you some ideas to fill that time and that space in a way that you can really just get connected in, again, with God, with family. We've got devotions in there, activities, reading, cooking, different things like that.
Dashes.
Dashes. If you want to just do dashes.
As many
all the
as
time.
you want.
Yeah. Yeah, we've even got some recipes for you to dive into. The
Yep.
Les Mis reference from earlier on was because I kind of suggested that people could read Les Mis. That was roundly booed because it's really, really long.
In a week.
In a week.
Just read
It'll
Les
be
Mis.
Yeah, you're
fine.
probably going to need more than a week, especially if your attention span is as obliterated as mine is from screens.
There
so.
you go. There you go. Yeah, so we think that it'll be a challenging journey, right? But I think it'll be a really fruitful journey too. And we'd love also, when your Screen Fast is done, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us how it went for you. We would love to know whether you noticed some improvements or whether you said, "Oh my goodness, I never ever want to give up my
How much of a
screens again."
torture it was. You know.
Exactly. Thanks, guys. Plenty of people love the musical Wicked, right, Adam? The original stage production broke all sorts of records on Broadway, and the movie based on the first part of the musical has earned nearly $500 million in North America alone. The second half, scheduled for release this November, promises to be just as big. Now, fans of the musical might have wanted more Wicked in their lives, and they might have just turned to the 1995 book written by Gregory Maguire, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. I know that sometimes when I have loved a movie, especially when I was a kid, I would go out and read the book, that was written after the movie or even before the movie, so you know that's going to happen. Mr. Hoose, you have reviewed the movie. You have reviewed the book now.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, it was at the prompting of one of our readers, as a matter of fact.
Yep, absolutely.
Saying, well, the movie's been out. How about the book?
Yeah. So are the movie and the book similar?
I guess we ought to sort of lay that all out. The book that Gregory Maguire wrote is based initially on the source material of the original book,
right? The Wizard of Oz,
the Wonderful Wizard of Oz,
right,
by L. Frank Baum, and the 1939 film with Judy Garland. And he took the idea, the context, and then said, okay, what if we sort of flip the premise a little bit? What if we say we're going to look at this story from the witch's perspective, and what if the witch isn't really wicked? And that's a great idea. Right. I mean, it really is a great idea. The book, not so much. And for a number of reasons. I mean, one of the things that really struck me about this book as I was reading it because I went in like many fans would, because I actually like the Wicked musical. I think the music is fabulous and the story is good, and but the Wicked book is set in a different kind of Oz.
Sure.
I mean, fans, especially young fans, going in expecting this fantasy world where Dorothy and her little sidekicks are running down the yellow brick road, ain't gonna find it here. I mean, Dorothy's in this book, but this is a darker, much more.
She's a heroin addict.
Well, I mean, he jokes, but I mean, the fact is Dorothy is pretty much one of the only innocent people that we see in this book, and we only see her very, very briefly, like at the end of the film, at the end of the book. We see her at the very beginning and the very end. But this is a gritty sort of Oz. This is an Oz that is in turmoil over social and political and religious things. In fact, it's a fallen Oz, a corrupt Oz that's sort of
that's interesting.
crumbling from within. And that's I mean, because basically this is a tragedy. The book is a tragedy. And as you know, any tragic hero is a hero that falls because of their own central
fatal flaw.
Right. But her fatal flaw, in a sense, is
The Wicked Witches.
The Wicked Witches, Elphaba, by the way, is her name. Her fatal flaw is, in a sense, Oz itself. This sort of crumbling, angry sort of world that she lives in, and so the book really is kind of, it's more of a rebellion story.
That's interesting.
You know, that deals with a lot of politics. You know, and I mentioned religion. It deals with religion all the way through, and the author is none too happy with any kind of religious expression. And so it really paints things pretty darkly. And I think a lot of readers will go in and be fairly surprised. And there's one thing that I definitely need to stress, though. It's also a very sexualized world. And you might not expect that at all.
Well, the movie was PG.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, coming from the movie, or if you had read the original book way back when, you might not expect that in a book about Oz. But like, for example, I'll give you two examples. The very first scene is Elphaba as an adult, and she comes up behind Dorothy and her three sidekicks. And Dorothy's sort of off to the side while the witch listens in, and the lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow are talking about rumors about Elphaba, the witch. But it's rumors about her sexuality, about her gender, about who she's sleeping with, men or women, and different things like that.
Wow.
And you go, whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't think the Tin Man would say anything like that.
Yeah.
And so that sort of gives you the flavor of what you're going to find in the book. And then I'll tell you about one other scene that I found shocking. And that is there are a bunch of students from Shiz University. That's where Elphaba and Galinda go to school.
Sure.
And these students decide they're going to go to this club. And it turns out that it's sort of like a sex club. And so there's alcohol and drugs involved, and they're ushered into this room where two humans and this animal creature are sort of in very, well, intimate situation.
To get too detailed about that.
They're talking.
But the
They're
thing is that the book describes it and draws us into that and other sexual affairs that other people have, and when you hit those moments, it really is kind of shocking.
Well, in some ways, as you describe it, and I edited your review, and I found it pretty shocking what was in it. It almost feels like what we call fan fiction, right?
Yeah.
It's somebody who took this thing and then made it his own and added all this contemporary stuff that had nothing to do with the original story, which is often kind of the essence of fan fiction. He just happened to hit the long ball, and they made a Broadway musical out of it, you know. And that was what struck me as I read your review.
Yeah, you know what really strikes me is that, again, a lot of our readers had some problems with the PG musical Wicked. You know, it has a lot of magic, it's pretty dark, all of that kind of stuff. A lot of Christians really embrace that movie as well. And When I think about some kids, some teens who really loved the movie,
Yeah.
move into this book. I mean, you're going from a PG-rated movie into what sounds like R-rated material.
Well,
Would
it
that be
is.
fair?
It very much is. In fact, if you sort of put the things side by side, you may think that there's some dark elements in the Wicked musical. But compared to the book
Right.
is almost pornographic. Now, of course, if you're going in
And
purely,
there's quite a bit of profanity too, right?
oh yeah,
Bob?
lots. And I mean, if you look at it purely from a porn perspective, you might say, well, that's pretty light. But compared to the fantasy of the Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it's a completely different world, and it's a fairly dark and gritty one.
It's one of the things that when we talk about like Wicked the musical and Wicked the book, it reminds us that so many times when we're looking at entertainment, you really have to take each product individually,
Yes,
right?
that's a
I
good point.
think back to
Yep.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You watch the movies; they're pretty light, they're pretty fun. But when you get into the comic books, the originating comic books, they can get
pretty dark.
really dark. Would you guys have any suggestions for what parents do when they know that their kids love something? And there's all this other peripheral stuff. What would you advise parents to do?
I would just try to get ahead of it as a parent, in terms of, hey, if you know that your kid loves Wicked, for an example, just maybe do some research on some of the other materials.
Are you
around
saying
this.
come to plug in?
I
Plugged
am
in?
saying come to Plugged In, and
Yeah.
Bob actually does a lot of our book reviews, which is it's a very good thing that he does that, right?
Well,
because
and people can also ask us.
exactly,
If we don't have the review, they can
Exactly.
say, hey, have you guys thought about reviewing the Ninja Turtles
Yes.
comics or whatever?
Well, and really, we rely on our readers, our users,
Yeah.
to let us know about those things, right? We often look at those very seriously.
Well, I think that, and I think with books in particular, things can get buried, and we can even maybe tend to look at books with like kind of a very innocent lens, like, oh well, there's not stuff in this book that would be any worse than what's on TV or in a movie and things like that. And sometimes that's the case, sometimes it's not. So as you said, Paul, each property really has to be taken on its own merits, right? So reach out to Plugged In if you have something you'd like us to review. Do some research yourself as well, just around some of the things that your kids are interested in or maybe they've expressed interest in ahead of time before maybe you give that book
Yeah.
and say, hey, go for it.
Well,
The
and
movie was
even,
great.
Even on the front of that TV argument, the fact is you go to a TV show and it's a half an hour long, what we'll say. When you're in a book, it can be days and days
Well,
that you're
yeah.
spending in this world.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. And entertainment affects us differently. And when you are talking about the books, in some ways, even though they're not that visual medium, I think they're one of the most powerful forms of entertainment that we have because of that amount of time that you spend in those worlds.
Absolutely. And then what the book is, kind of the relationship between the book and the reader, right? What the reader is being asked to put into the book as well. As they're reading through it, they're picturing things in their mind. So I think that really forms like a connection, can form a connection between the reader and the book, that if the book is very problematic, I mean, that can be very, very affecting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for this fascinating conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And bottom line, what are we saying? Parents, think twice
Yeah, absolutely.
about this book.
I mean,
sounds like
it's
it.
tough to be a parent today. It's important to know what your kids are getting into, and even if one facet feels just fine and navigable for your family, that doesn't mean that every other facet is.
Right.
Thank you guys so much. This has been a very interesting conversation. By the way, we love to hear listener, viewer, we love to hear your thoughts as well. We really dig hearing what you have to say about all the stuff that we talked about. And as we mentioned, the stuff that maybe we didn't and you think that we should. You know, we had somebody talk to us about Wicked the book. We also had someone write in about episode 231, a comment that she had for our Does Entertainment Affect Our Beliefs episode. Gene wrote, in R.C. Sproul's Survey of Philosophy, he said that philosophers come up with ideas. Then it is the arts that spread those ideas. So I believe this probably goes back at least as far as Greek philosophers and Greek drama.
See, now, man, that
See?
just points to the fact that our listeners are a cut above.
They really are smart people. Thank you for being so smart. And we would love to hear more smart thoughts from y'all.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, dumb thoughts are okay too.
Does-
Right?
Yeah, even not so smart thoughts. I mean,
Sure.
I'd like to make it safe for those too.
We spent the first part of this podcast talking about zombies. So I
That's
mean,
right.
you know,
So we had our own dumb thoughts to throw in there. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so anyway, let us know. Let us know what you think about this podcast. Let us know if you do the screen fast with us. Tell us how it went. We would love to hear your thoughts on that. Tell us about a form of media that sort of surprised you, you know? When you watch something and the book or the TV show or whatever proved to be completely unexpected. We'd love to hear about that. So you can always write to us on Facebook and Instagram. Contact us through team@thepluggedinshow.com, or you can even leave us an old school voicemail on our Plugged In Show homepage. And then join us next week when we talk about Prime Video's new biblically inspired series, The House of David. That's up next on The Plugged In Show.